This is the 45th floor of Comcast Tower.
Apartments there now. In there? And I don't know which one, the first one or the second one. But they're now $6 million.
Remember the days you couldn't do
This is the view from the conference room here. The Ben Franklin Bridge. City Hall. Way down there is Sandy Hill and Queen Village. Conference room.
Yeah, oh yes. Most companies would have elected to go out of the city. Building that we are. The building we're going to talk about today, though, is this new building. It'll be 1,121 feet to the very top, the 60 stories. You'll see a couple of slides here that explain what the breakdown is in the building, but in general, okay, the top, this is just a huge mass. We've actually got cooling towers, okay, that you see on the top of a lot of these buildings that sit above the roof line. Well, these are encased, and they're stacked, two and two. So you've got these massive cooling towers stacked on top of each other. And then there's a mast, 150-foot mast that will be lit, at night. So it'll be pretty exciting as a beacon for the city. The top of the building is the hotel. Although there are some elements, lower down, we'll talk you through that in just a minute. And then there's about 1.3 million square feet of office space, and that's a fully leased by Comcast. And this is sort of an unusual situation because Comcast is our partner, as well as our tenant. So very, very. Our new building, they enter here. There'll be a set of doors over here. Okay, the hotel entry is on the west side. This is north, south, east, and west. So the hotel, entry is here, but you can also, come through, get access. A very unusual, feature of this building, in terms of the core, the way that it sits, in relation to the footprint of the building, is that, it's not, in the middle, of the building. It's offset. And it's a split core, which is unusual, which means that you'll be able to see, east and west, standing at any point, on the east or the west, which is important, in terms of the office space itself. To tie in, a lot of you came, in terms of public transit here, you came up these, stairs here. But you're going to be able to walk, a couple of different ways, through the food court, which you may have seen here. Okay, so you come this way, or you can walk this way, and tie into a tunnel that we haven't yet built. We're just in the process now of setting up, to build that tunnel. The problem being that there wasn't enough space, vertically to build that tunnel. So we actually have to raise, 18th Street, 2 feet. Which means that we've got a parking lot here, underground, which means we have to rebuild the ramps. So we have to raise those, 2 feet. Once that's done, we'll close, 18th Street to here. Okay, we'll build the tunnel. So we should probably close the street sometime in June. All right, and take until the first quarter, of next year to finish up that tunnel. The top of this building that we're sitting in, is actually, a huge area for all the cooling towers, etc. Okay, the cooling towers that we're going to have are here. Plus, we've got five different floors, that have all the equipment, on it. So it's all concealed. You don't see it. This is, 18th Street here. This is Arch Street here. Next slide, please. this will be the grand entry, into the office, side of the building. Pretty amazing, piece of architecture. I think it's fair to say, Lord Foster and his team, from London is one of the top firms in the planet. You'll start to see very shortly. This is called Pilkington glass system, made in England, and it's actually a hung system. You think of windows being built, bottom up, or sitting in some sort of enclosure, but this is actually a hung system. Next slide, please. This is a great slide to really explain what is called the podium of the building. The podium, is really this section here down. Okay, and it contains. This is part of the hotel. They'll have ballrooms, your meeting rooms, a kitchen, up there. This is the winter garden. Okay, the shot that you saw before, you were looking, into the winter garden from this direction. So you enter it here. Okay, you have this nice, green space. You go up a set of escalators. Okay, and at that point, you go to your elevator, and up to your office here. This also gives you a sense, okay, for the concourse level, which is the way that you get across the street, over the tunnel, and then there are about 70, parking spots, underground, and not public, parking, that are leased by the tenant. But then you're going to be able to walk through to the other side of the building. So it gives you a good sense. This is the escalator. It's a super tall, escalator, that takes you up from the hotel side, up to the fifth floor.
At the lobby, so that the check-in would be on 5?
Check-in, no. Check-in is actually at the very top of the building.
Oh.
So you take a high-speed, elevator ride, all the way to the top. Okay, you check in there. Okay, we'll get to that. It's a very important slide, in terms, of the building itself, the podium section of the building. And then above that, okay, you start to see a typical, 3-floor cluster, with the sky garden. We'll see that, here. This is Arch, and this is 19th Street. So the other direction. Next slide, please. And this will be the hotel, entry. It's pretty grand for Four Seasons. This is not a huge hotel by hotel standards. 222 room is a perfect size here. Part of the thing, the reason, the Four Seasons, wanted to give up the other location they moved out of was it was a little too large. It was 375 rooms. This we think is size, ideally, especially if you look at the amenities involved in this hotel. So you come in here, and as I said, you would take a series of elevators up. They're glass elevators, so you'll have these incredible views to the north and west. Next slide, please. This would be a street scene, on Arch Street. We'll have two major restaurants. Okay, one on Arch, and there'll be a restaurant at the top of the building, 5960. You'll check in, there'll be a bar, and then you'll walk down to 59, there'll be a restaurant, which is essentially a glass box at the top of the building. We'll have these incredible views. Plus, we are in the process of finalizing arrangements with two chefs, celebrity chefs, so-called celebrity chefs. So each of these restaurants will have a different theme, a different chef. They're all managed by a Four Seasons, with their name on it. Next slide. Comcast office here. Okay, it goes 3 stories here, 2 stories here, 1 story here. This is a tall, section of glass. So very interactive. You've got stairs, that connect. As well as, as the elevators. It's open space design. Collaboration. It's the way they work. Major tech companies.
And Chris, these atriums are like, you know, think of a 3-story atrium would be in a typical office building, and there is going to have these stacked, and there's 13 of them?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's 13 of these 3-story atriums stacked as you go up the building. So wherever you are in the building, you'll be able to come to the west side of the building and come into this really beautiful 3-story space on 13 different places in the building, and actually times 3, right? So it's going to be pretty special.
I mean, again, the split core, you're going to be able to stand here, okay, and look west, or you can stand over here and look east. So you're really going to have these incredible views. Next slide, please. This would be a view, you know, on the floor itself. And again, it might not, you know, end up, you know, exactly like this. This is an old, you know, rendering. We do renderings to look at what it might look like. This is old. This goes way back. But you talk about the chill beams. These are the chill beams. And you've got the lighting that runs in the other direction.
And
It's
it's unfinished ceiling, is that correct?
unfinished ceiling, correct. That's a spray and fireproofing, painted. Again, you know, techie, you know, warehousey type of feeling.
Like loft space would be. You know.
Very expensive lots of this.
Yeah, exactly right. It's not an inexpensive one.
Decorative? Or does it have a purpose?
It was a bit of whimsy.
I like whimsy, it's smart.
Yeah, it was a bit of whimsy.
I don't think it's going to happen now.
No.
Okay.
I mean,
No.
some places have done, I think, you know, one of the
Town hall.
sort of the typical photos you see at the Google headquarters, they have some slides like that, and other people have done that, you know. And so that was sort of one of the things that the architects threw in as a neat idea. And then they actually talked to the employees, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to use that. We're going to spend that money somewhere else. We're really not going to be jumping in that and sliding down 3 floors. So looks cool, but, you know,
Daycare center.
yeah, put some money somewhere else.
You know, very, very exciting. Many moons ago, you know, 23 moons ago, you know, 23 years ago, I built a 4 Seasons Inn hotel in New York. And so this is exciting for me when we revisit the
Yeah.
4 Seasons again. Okay, next slide. This is the entry. You've seen this before, a little bit at a distance, but it gives you a sense of the scale to enjoy, you know, as you enter. You have the driveway, you know, that runs through here. You know, and then, you know, in terms of parking garage access, you know, it's back behind that. Next slide, please. This is a pretty good, you know, cutaway section. It really explains, again, the way that we talked about the bottom of the building, the podium. Well, this is the top of the building. You know, I talked about, you know, reception, that'll be here. Okay, you'll have a cocktail bar here, you'll have a restaurant here. But you see the glass, it's a glass roof, you know, too. And then you'll have a spa, which is on this level, you know, full service spa. That is an infinity pool, you know, so you'll look, you know, east, and you'll see the top of the water. It's pretty exciting. And then the hotel floor is going to start down here. One of the structural features of tall buildings is an attempt to slow what is called the acceleration, the movement of the building. And we have a dampering system, you know, in this building, and that's what this is here. This is called a tune, you know, sloshing damper system. And it's a big, you know, bathtub, essentially, 30, 40, and 50,000 gallons of water, and it's got big flaps called dampers. You know, you tune it so that you slow the movement of the building. Okay, so it's, you know, it's less perceptible. You'll see the same sort of concept in the City Core building, you know, in New York, that's got the slope top to it. Okay, the mass damper, which is solid, is in that sloped on the top of that building.
I have I know it's going to sound silly, I have a request. That lantern stay lit all night with the bird, because we have a terrible problem in this city with birds not seeing those projections and
You know,
killing themselves.
we spent a lot of time, you know, thinking about birds, believe it or not.
Thank you.
Because there's a lot of glass in the building, we get reflection, we talk to Audubon Society. We try to the extent possible. I mean,
Thank you.
to make the building as bird friendly as you can make it. You know, but it's an issue, you know.
Oh, it's an issue all over every city, I mean, it's not,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the fact that you thought about it is so nice.
It'll be slightly tinted glass. Okay, but it'll be clear, not good, it'll be clear to you. As I said here, on a clear day, you can see, as far as I can see. But that's a rare day. There's half a crystal clear. So this is a shot looking down from the 60th floor to the 59th floor. Again, this is an early concept. This has changed, slightly in the last, 18 months. What is exciting here, okay, is the ceiling. A series, of mirrors, reflections, so you'll get this incredible sense of space. What's exciting too, in tall buildings, most of the helicopters fly 500 feet, 750 feet. So if you're standing, at 900 feet, they're flying under you. So that's really a different experience to think of a helicopter flying up under you. So pretty grand space. We think it's going to be a world-class space in terms of the restaurant, the food, the ambiance. Plus at night, it will be exciting. Again, if you need the restrooms, they're around the corner to the left. Next slide, please. Okay, the guest rooms and suites. Next slide, please. Again, these are renderings. There are some slight changes here, but this is a pretty good general idea. Very clean design, modern design. There's a pod, okay, which is the bathroom here.
Yeah, that's all wood clad.
All wood clad. We built mock-ups out in Busham. We've been through a lot of process here to perfect this with Four Seasons, with Comcast, because they are the joint venture partner. They have an interest in this. Because obviously, for them, it will be a place to entertain. So it's important to them to be first rate. Standing in the bathroom again, very clean design. The tubs are custom carved in Europe. Next slide, please. This is a straight-on, view of a typical, king bed. Next slide, please. This is a corridor. It's tricky in hotels, corridors, because they're sort of these nondescript space. You don't want it to be, boring. You don't want it to be, uninviting. It wants to have a certain light level. You want to, as you stroll, down there, you really get a pleasant sense. And we spent a lot of time, working in the corridors to get them just right. Next slide, please. Ballroom on floor 5. So this gives you a pretty good sense of the east facing ballroom complex. We come up the escalator, the small escalator that I mentioned, into a pre-function space. Then you have an option here for a larger meeting room, and then smaller meeting room. And then you've got kitchen space back here. You talk a lot of things around the elevators, just to hide them. It is unusual for a hotel of this size to have as many kitchens as we do. But that's because you've got room service, you've got main kitchen, you've got banquet here, you've got 2 restaurant kitchens, so we've got 5 kitchens in this building. Exercise equipment, pool, etc. So full service spa. Again, unusual for a hotel of this size to have a full service, but it is Four Seasons. And I think Four Seasons is pretty excited about it because they think for what it is, it'll be one of the top properties in the world. So, next slide. This is a view from the little lounge areas. Next slide, please. This is another lounge area.
It's going to be interesting, that tool, to see how that works,
Yeah.
Putting that right up against the facade of the building is really interesting.
Yeah. Next slide, please. This is the exercise area. Next slide. Construction. Jim and I are going to tag team this. Again, we started 7/1 of 2014. midsummer of 14. So just about 21 months ago. When we started with the flat parking lot. In terms of the excavation itself, it goes only 3 stories. That was a tough 3 stories to get down. We had a lot
About
of
40 feet deep, I guess.
I'm sorry?
About 40 feet deep.
Yep, 40 feet. You see here a ramp. Okay, this is how, you dig a hole, if you will. You've got to get the trucks up there. See a lot of, backhoes, sheeting and shoring to keep the, earth back. Then you start to see here too what are called, caisson rigs. Caissons are the big, circular types of footing. In this case, we had 66, 3, 6, and 8 foot, in diameter caissons that are actually embedded in rock. Okay, you won't think about this, in terms of tall buildings frequently, but it's not just the load bearing. Okay, you're concerned about. You're concerned about the torsion. Okay, the twisting of the building, the wind. You're concerned about the uplift, and you're also concerned about the bend of the building. So the whole, structure, has to translate, down to these, footings, essentially. It's a class, footing, called a caisson. They're reinforced. Next
So when
slide.
they drill down not only through all of the earth, but as Chris was saying, into the rock. But they actually drill into the rock about 8 feet. 5
It
feet.
varies. We have some that are actually embedded 25 feet.
Okay, so you're literally drilling into the rocks here. You're locking that foundation literally into the bedrock. So it's actually a very good location to be able to build a tall building because of that.
Right.
It makes it easier to do a structure literally sitting on bedrock.
Well, this is a caisson machine here. Okay, it uses an auger, okay, to drill down, to bring the dirt up. This is the ramp that you saw. Okay, to take the trucks and move equipment in and out of the hole. That's what we call the excavation hole.
Environmental issues going down that part of the...
We did not. It was a fairly clean site. We had some localized, pockets, of fuel, that had to be cleaned up. It was only a 5,500 cubic yards, of dirt that we had to haul off and handle. It was environmental. Next slide, please. Again, another good view of the entire excavation. Church here, so this is looking east. Next slide, please. A lot of activity here. Okay, you start to see the support system. These are called rakers. Okay, they actually tie out to a footing, this board here, temporary footing. And that's to hold back the excavation. Because we can't get tiebacks. Typically what you do, okay, is you tie with a series of post-tension cables, back into the earth. But because of what was under here, we couldn't do that. So we had to use a raker system which supports it from the inside of the building, the excavation, until we could pour the foundation up to a certain elevation. And then we had to come back and cut these out. Next slide, please. Good view here of the entire excavation and the mat footing. You probably heard, and this was December of 14, we poured a massive footing, if you will, for the core, that goes up the building. This was a 4,000-yard pour, that took 19 or 20 hours. So it was a big operation. We started at midnight, and poured until sundown.
So to give you an idea of the largest concrete trucks hold about 10 cubic yards. So if you're doing 40,000 cubic yards, all has to be poured continuously. You can't stop pouring and come back the next day. You have to have 400 truckloads of concrete to go into that one foundation. Wow. And you have to just keep them coming. So that's why they started in the middle of the night, because there'd be less traffic. You just think, you have a traffic accident or a problem getting these trucks in, and it really becomes quite a problem, right? So, so it's quite a logistical effort there.
We have a lot of obligations. We get street closure permits, which we did. We actually closed the whole section of 18th Street, the stages 4. because you were using, 3 or 4 of the big pumps. You probably see the pumps that hang over, and they pump the concrete. So we had, 3 or 4 of those pumps. Here you start to see them, framing up the first lift. Okay, the lift is the first section where you would use lift. Of the walls, okay, that form the outside of this core. So you can see the long what appear to be lines. That's steel. That's the reinforcement steel. That gets all tied together. You see the forms here, the first elements of the forms that will go up around that, and then you pour the concrete in the forms. Next slide, please. This is a really good shot. It really tells the story of the formwork, because you can see the outside of the formwork, you can see the inside of the formwork, and then you can see the reinforcing steel that goes in there.
Be interesting to know how many hundreds of miles, maybe thousands of miles of reinforcing steel. Should ask the structural engineer to do a calculation on that, because it'd be probably wrapped around the world a couple of times. It's just like the quantities of material are just stunning.
Yep. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you really see this. This is a leap, probably 6 to 8 weeks, forward. So you see the core, now is up, and that's massive. At moments, here as you go up the core, it's 2 and 3 feet thick. So pretty massive structure. These are shear walls that actually sit at the outside face of the main footprint of the building. I mean, again, to stabilize this whole structure as you go up. This is before, we're just here, seeing the first elements of structural steel. Sometimes you'll pour a slab on grade, okay, you'll start to steel at the slab on grade. And here we started to steel, down at the B2, B3 level. Next slide, please. And so now you start to see, this, is where a crane sits. We're using a crawler crane. Okay, but at a point we had to pull that out of the excavation because the ramp was gone. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you see this. This is in September. We're sitting there at probably 23, 24 in terms of formwork. What happens is you climb the forms. Actually, it climbs the core. As it goes up. And you've got in this project three tower cranes, and there are 3 different types of tower cranes. This one here actually sits, outside the major footprint of the building. And to climb it, to raise it, you need to insert a section, into it. And then it gets tied into the building as you go up. There's a crane, you can't see it here, but it's the concrete crane that sits on the other side of the core. Here. And I think we'll see a better shot. I'll explain it to you then. Okay, and then you've got an internally, climbing crane, which is there in the northeast, corner of the building. And actually it sits, inside the steel framework, and it climbs the steel framework itself. So it's very unusual to have 3 cranes, but 3 separate types of cranes on this building. Next slide, please. Again, a good shot of the northeast and the tower crane in the core. Next slide, please. So here's the climbing crane on the core. This we think is the first time it's been used in the U.S. It's a European type of climbing crane. We've got columns here and here. As it gets up, okay, we'll have enough space to set into the column. Okay? And then you've got a jacking mechanism here that will raise the whole crane up, 6 stories. Okay, we'll take this down, and then when it gets to a certain point, we'll leave it going. So we've got 3 of these columns now go all the way up the building. Southwest crane. Next slide, please. But until then, we'll use the other cranes to take I mean, the third crane apart, the second will take, the first, and then we go to the stiff leg derrick. So here you see, shear walls, we talked about before, the steel structure is really getting up there. At this moment, what you'll see when we walk outside, the core is sitting at about floor 45, which is the top of the office stack. Okay. And then we start, with the hotel. We've got, mechanical floors on, 46, 47, and then, 48, which is the first floor, hotel rooms. Steel currently on the west side of the building, which is the far side of the building, is sitting at 24, 25, and steel on the east is sitting at 21 to 22. Next slide. This is a great shot. It really tells the whole story. That's how the building looks in the construction stage. Next slide, please. This is an important shot because it shows the hoisting system. Okay, the external construction, hoisting system. It has a capacity to carry 6 cars. It's currently, at this point, fitted out with 4. Very, very important because you have to move a lot of men and materials. And probably by mid to late summer, we'll have 1,000 people on this project. So it's a major chore to move. And I mean, at a moment too, we'll have second shift and third shift too.
You can imagine just the logistics of the waste that's created as you're cutting things up and the debris that's left over. You got to get that out of the building. You got to get all the materials into the building, whether it's the drywall, the doors, the carpet, and everything else into the building. Plus, you have to get people into the building, and those people have to be dropped off at all the floors in the building. So you have 60 floors of people working. So to get them in, come at 7 o'clock in the morning, 6:30, to get them in, distributed around the building, and all the materials. That's why a lot of things on second and third shift is where you'll be putting materials in. And all of these subcontractors need to book elevator time or crane time with the general contractor to be able to say, look, I need to get such and such amount of material here for my X number of people that are working, and I need this on this date. And make sure, because you can't have trucks just sitting out there lined up there. You come in, get unloaded, get out of there, So the logistics of that is a full-time job for 7 people. It's amazing, just getting all the material and up and down in the building.
What you start to see in this shot too is the curtain wall. We call it curtain wall, glass in the facade, of the building. This is a fairly recent shot. This is February 26th. We take extensive photographs once a week on Fridays. So we have a pretty good history of what happened. The goal is to be able to start TI, which is the Comcast and tenant improvement work the first week in May. Feel the scale here, I said it's 24, 25, this is 21, 22.
And just to give you an orientation, this is the winter garden, the sky garden area at the front where people will enter off the street here. So that's the, you can see from that height, it really starts to diminish the size, but it's a pretty grand space.
West, there's 30th Street Station. Watching the Schuylkill.
Everyone's on, and Tom, if you don't mind, what can we do
foundation and going up, if we hang it off of the core, you can do all your core going all the way across. If you put the crane all the way down, wait until you take the crane down to fill in all the concrete floor. So this crane's actually been only used 3 times in the world. We're number 3. You can see the little brackets. They put an extra bracket on and they do what they call jump the crane. It moves up another 6-foot section. Right now, that crane is about 980 feet. It's about the limit of where we need to be. We're supposed to be getting an additional FAA permit. We're going to be as tall as the Comcast building right now is with that crane. As you come down, you'll see a couple, before we leave up there, you'll see some concrete just as a point of reference, I was watching them being manufactured. They're almost as tall as I am. Not that I'm very tall, but that's very impressive. They came in 4 sections and they had to weld them together and brace them before they could take everything down. As you look up, you see some white stuff on the structural steel. That is called spray-on fireproofing. As you may or may not know, as part of your fire codes and what have you, basically a learning experience from where the Meridian Center was. When steel gets hot, what happens? It expands into form. The spray-on fireproofing adds about an hour, 2 hours of
up of what the glass on the outside is going to be like.
Serving food inside the building for the contractors, because as you can guess, it's a lot of logistics